All right, good morning everyone to our first Launch a Career in Canada event. My name is Micah Sheep and I'm an international student advisor working with scholarship recipients. I'm a member of the LCIC planning committee because I was an international student myself back in the day and know how important career and networking events are for international students in particular, as it is so easy to get overwhelmed by the Canadian labor market. This morning, I will be your host and moderator. It is my pleasure to welcome you to today's session. Launch a Career in Canada presents Postgraduate Work Permit and Permanent Residence Information Session by Abdallah Khalifa. Launch a Career in Canada is UBC's annual working experience dedicated to supporting the career development of UBC international students. Each year, Launch a Career in Canada provides opportunity for UBC's international students to connect with alumni who were once international students and learn from their experience establishing their career. In these events, you will have the opportunity to hear from alumni in various panel events, connect and network with industry professionals in networking sessions, discover how to navigate work and research opportunities at UBC, develop job search skills, and learn how alumni made a successful transition from UBC to the Canadian workplace. We hope you find a lot of value from these events. As we speak of establishing our lives in school and work settings located in a land that we call Canada, it is of great importance that we also acknowledge where we are today. On these territories, the work we do, the paths we take, the education we pursue, these are all taking place on Indigenous land. I am currently living and working on a traditional, unceded, and ancestral territory of the Coquitlam First Nation, which lies within the shared territories of the Tsleil-Waututh, Katzie, Musqueam, Kekwet, Squamish, and Stola First Nations. I would also like to encourage you to take a moment to remember whose land you're currently residing on. Before I hand it over to Abdallah for this exciting presentation on the postgraduate work permit and permanent residency, please let us know that you're here. Abdallah, would you mind going to the second slide? There's a link here that you can access to let us know that you're here, or you can use the scanning code on the screen as well. We'll give you a minute to access this. Wonderful. I'll keep reposting this link while people are joining. But for now, I'm going to hand it over to Abdallah. Let me know if you have any tech issues. I will be in the background. Thank you.
Thank you, Micah. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. One thing before I start, I think I might not be able to see your chat if you're asking a question while I'm sharing your screen. I'll make sure to spare some time towards the end to look into your questions. Hi again. This presentation will be mainly about post-graduation work permit. We will also be talking about some other topics that might be of interest to you. My name is Abdallah Khalifa. I am one of the international student advisors at the International Student Advising Office. I am also a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. So what will we talk about today? We will be going over some, it's more of a refresher about the documents that you have and work eligibility. We'll talk about those students who might be interested in pursuing further studies upon their successful completion of their current programs of study. We'll talk about post-graduation work permit, some other work permits and permanent residency, and hopefully we'll have some time for your questions. Disclaimer, the information that I'm going to be presenting today have been prepared and approved by RESIDENCYs and RESIDENCYs. And those two designations, they're authorized by IRCC, Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship Canada, to give immigration advice to students. I just want to remind all of you to make sure that the immigration website, that should always be your source of information, not any third-party websites. This session is more of a refresher, so I'll try to be quick here to make sure that we'll focus more on things that you might be more interested in. For those who attended some of our workshops in the past, this is not new to you. Now, as an international student in Canada, of course, you travel to Canada with your passport. You have your valid study permit. If you come from a visa required country, you have your TRV, or if you come from visa exempt country, you have your electronic travel authorization. The TRV and ETA, they're usually required to travel to Canada, while the study permit is what gives you status in Canada. If your passport expires, of course, your ETA and study permit will expire. And if your study permit expires, anything that is linked to your study permit will also expire, like your TRV, co-op permit, SIN, MSP, and some other documents, for example, your family members' documents. To make sure that students do their due diligence and make sure that their documents are valid at any time they're in Canada, we have created the great reminder system. So make sure that your documents are up to date and you update your reminder system, which will send you a reminder if a document will expire soon. As you may also know, in 2014, the International Student Program was updated. What was new, so it's been almost 7 years, students are expected, not expected actually, they're required to remain enrolled and actively pursue studies. What does that mean? At any time you are in Canada as a student with a study permit, you must have a valid study permit. You have to stay registered or make efforts towards the successful completion of your program of study. If you will be taking a break or study part-time, that might impact your future planning. So make sure to talk about with our office before making such a decision. Now, full-time status for undergraduate student. As an undergraduate student, the most important thing is to maintain full-time status in winter term 1 and winter term 2. Technically, in any winter terms, the full-time means 9 credits or more in any winter term. For summer, it's optional. It might be a scheduled break. We'll be talking shortly about this. Your final academic term, you're deemed to be studying full-time, regardless of how many credits you're taking during that term. If you're studying in the Diploma in Accounting program, summer is an academic session, not a scheduled break. And the reason why we make this difference, if you look into the UBC definitions for immigration purposes, when students are on a scheduled break, they're full-time the term before, full-time the term after, they can work full-time during the scheduled break. Unfortunately, this doesn't apply to DAB students. For graduate students, full-time means registered or continuing. So it's different from undergraduate students. It's about registration status, so registered or continuing. Same with DAB students. Summer is an academic session. So to maintain full-time status, students should be registered or continuing in any academic session, and this is for graduate students. Now, when can international students work? Those are some of the eligibility criteria or conditions that students have to meet. I would encourage all of you to look at the International Student Guide for more information about this. But if you have a valid study permit, you are a full-time degree-seeking student, then you may be eligible to work on or off campus. For on-campus work, as you may know also, there is no limit on how many hours you can work. For off-campus work, you can work up to 20 hours per week. You can also combine on and off campus. So technically you can work 20 hours off campus in addition to the work that you might do on campus. We're talking about regular academic terms. For scheduled breaks, the biggest one would be summer for undergraduate students. They can work full time, but other scheduled breaks might be reading break or transition between terms, a Christmas break. If students meet the scheduled break definition, as I mentioned earlier, full time the term before, and they will be enrolled full time the term after, they can work full time while on a scheduled break. For co-op, we usually get many questions from students about this. What is important to know that to be eligible for a co-op work permit, the co-op program is an essential part of your academic program of study. Technically, it's like any other course. It's integral to your program of study. You won't be able to complete your program without completing this co-op placement. Co-op work permit is required for co-op work. And you cannot start working your in a co-op placement before obtaining your co-op work permit. This is in normal circumstances. And I meant to keep it this way, just in case other students see this in the future. At this time, IRCC has issued a temporary policy where students may start their co-op placements if they're in Canada. There is some exception also for those who are outside Canada, but the big or the main difference is if they submit their co-op work permit and they have to start their co-op placement soon, they may start their co-op placement using their work authorization as full-time students until the co-op work permit is issued. What does that mean? So we go back to what we have discussed earlier about your authorization to work on or off campus. So let's say if a student will be starting their co-op in September, they will, as a co-op student, you're enrolled as a full-time student. You can work up to 20 hours off campus, or you can work on campus with no limit on how many hours you can do. That means you submitted your co-op work permit in August. You don't have it on the day your co-op placement starts. What you can do, you can work, if this co-op placement is off campus, you can work up to 20 hours off campus. You know, this is new. This was not the case in the past, but this is to facilitate students' academic progress and helping them joining co-op placements in light of the longer processing time because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Another common question that we get from students, I graduated, I completed my program, my co-op work permit is still valid, can I use it? The answer is no. Co-op work permits can only be used for co-op placements that are integral to your program study, not other internships. So if you go to, if you find an internship with a company which is not related to your program of study, can you use your co-op work permit? The answer is no. You can apply online or paper. Of course, you know, at this time, I would suggest that all applications, whenever possible, are submitted online. No application fee. And one thing to keep in mind, immigration says if your co-op placement is 50% or less from your program study, that is okay. So the co-op program should not be more than 50% of the total length of your program of study. And the calculation of the 50% is done by adding the co-op terms into the length of your program. For example, undergraduate degree, engineering degree, where, for 4 years, and 1 year co-op would be 5 years. So total length is 5. 1 year is definitely less than 50%. This is the way the 50% is calculated. Now, this is also very important. What is work? It doesn't matter if the type of activity is paid or unpaid or commission-based. The fourth bullet is the most important factor in determining whether the type of activity that you will be doing is considered work or not. If this activity will be considered or will lead to competition with Canadian labor market, so it might result in displacement of employment for Canadians and permanent residents, then this is work. One of the examples that I usually give, if you go and volunteer in a lab, while volunteering, you will gain special knowledge that would lead to employment, even though this work is not paid, but it might lead to employment, and this might be seen by immigration as displacement of employment for Canadians and permanent residents. So again, this is a very important factor to keep in mind when you think about work and what is work. I would also encourage you to visit the RCC website. They give some great examples of what is considered work and what's not, and what's considered voluntary work and what's not. So this is also something you can look into if you still need to know more about this. Medical exams, whether you want to work as a student, co-op student, on a post-graduation work permit, medical exams are required for two or three main reasons. One of them is previous country of residence. So those who lived in a designated country for medical purposes for 6 months or more in the last 12 months, then they might need to complete a medical exam when they apply for an immigration document. Another example, if you plan or intend to work in one of those jobs, mainly those jobs will bring you in direct contact with seniors, patients, primary school students or secondary school students. It's very important to keep in mind that you cannot start such a job not only before completing medical exam, but before receiving the work permit, co-op work permit, or sometimes the study permit, without the conditions that restrict you from doing such a job. This is also very important. The medical exam should be done with a panel physician. If you just Google panel physician RCC, you will have a list of panel physicians in different countries. So it's not something that you can do with your family doctor or any doctor. This is for medical exams. And here, a very important reminder to all of you. If you plan to take a break from your studies, please make sure to talk to your academic advisor or program coordinator, and make sure to book an appointment with an international student advisor at our office. And the reason why we say this, we usually would like to talk to students before they make such a decision. Taking a break might impact your future planning. It might impact your eligibility for post-graduation work permit. It might impact your status in Canada because, as I mentioned earlier, as an international student, you're expected to be in active pursuit of studies at any time you're in Canada. So status, this is something we have to keep in mind. I mentioned post-graduation work permit, on or off-campus work. If you have, or if you're considering doing this, please talk to our office, and we'll be happy to explore and navigate what options you might have. And also, the decision that you'll make will be well informed, so you know what you should expect should you decide to proceed with your plans. One short note on this is UBC does not have leave policy for undergraduate students. Unfortunately, we are working on it, and hopefully we'll have something in place in the near future. But for now, the only leave policy we have at UBC is for graduate students. And there is a big difference between authorized and unauthorized leave, because I will not, get into much details about this, but recently, I'd say RCC has put a policy in place, and they say international students who take authorized leave for up to 150 days will be deemed in active pursuit of studies. So technically, that will not impact, for example, their eligibility for post-graduation work permit in the future. Yet they cannot work on or off campus if they're not full-time students. But this is one of the main differences between authorized and unauthorized leave for graduate and undergraduate students. For students who are doing their undergraduate programs right now, they plan to join graduate master's degree, maybe PhD or master's to PhD. We have to keep a few things in mind. Number one, your study permit becomes invalid 90 days after program completion, or when your study permit actually expires, whichever comes first. This is very important. You must extend your study permit before it becomes invalid. So within 90 days from the day your letter of completion becomes available to you, or before it expires. For those who might not be taking action within this window, they might need to change their status to visitor or leave Canada to comply with the conditions of their study permits. I'll give you an example. So for students who they will complete their program in the coming May, they plan to join a program of study, let's say in September 2021 or January 2022. Admission has not been secured yet, so technically they cannot apply for a study permit extension. So what options do those students have? I'd say, well, they have the 90 days. Let's assume that the study permit is valid until August 1st, 2021. They have 90-day window to look into options, maybe securing admission, applying for a study permit extension. Let's assume no admission has been secured. We're still within 90 days. This student plans to stay in Canada, then they have to apply to change their status to visitor, so they can stay to visitor. But this will also come with something to keep in mind, I'd say, which is once you become a visitor, you might not be eligible to apply for a study permit from within Canada. So I don't want to get into more details about this, but if you fall into the scenario that I have shared with you, I would suggest that you book an appointment with an advisor, and we'll be happy to discuss that with you. I will talk about the 150 days between programs here. Another scenario that we have, students who will be completing their program in May, they secured their admission for a graduate program or another program actually in September. So those students would be in transition. What can they do? What options they have? We've been also lucky to have this update from RCC lately, which allows the students to work full-time while in transition between programs. Two things to keep in mind. First of all, the eligibility criteria, and number two, how the 150 days is calculated. So the 150 days starts from the date your letter of completion becomes available to you. You have up to 150 days until you start your program. If the transition period between both programs is more than 150 days, then you're only allowed to work for up to 150 days from the date your letter of completion becomes available. In addition to this, students should meet the other eligibility criteria, which is they were authorized to work off campus, they have a valid study permit, and or they applied for a study permit extension, they received letter of acceptance for the new program, they received letter of completion for the previous program, and they have, if needed, they have applied to extend their stay in Canada as students. Post-graduation work permit is one of the most popular topics that we talk about in our office. It's an amazing program that was introduced to international students to give them options to stay and work in Canada. The post-graduation work permit is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So if you apply for a post-graduation work permit now, you cannot apply for this again. And that's why it's important for you to think, is this a good time for you to apply for post-graduation work permit? If you will be joining another program of study, it might make more sense to apply once you complete the other program of study. Because once you start your new program, assuming you meet the eligibility criteria for working on or off campus, you can work as a full-time student. So why would I waste this opportunity of having an open work permit? However, you can still have a study permit and work permit at the same time. But again, what I'm trying to clarify here is the post-graduation work permit is an open work permit. You can be employed, self-employed, you can start your own business. It's a great opportunity for you to gain Canadian work experience. So you have, make sure that you apply for post-graduation work permit when you're ready to start working in Canada. Another note here is you may combine two programs and apply for post-graduation work permit as long as both programs are completed within 2 years. I'll give you an example. I completed my undergraduate degree. I joined another program of study, 1 year diploma. Both programs, so the first program was completed, let's say, May 2019. Second program was completed, let's say, December 2020. Both programs were completed within 2 years. So I can still claim both programs when apply for post-graduation work permit. And the reason why I say this is the length of post-graduation work permit, which I will be talking about in a few minutes. Another thing to keep in mind, you have, before applying for post-graduation work permit, you have to meet the eligibility criteria for post-graduation work permit. First of all, you have to continuously study full-time towards the completion of your program of study. If you will be studying part-time, taking breaks from your studies, this might impact your eligibility for post-graduation work permit and as I mentioned earlier, I would encourage you to talk to an advisor before, if possible, before doing this. If you have taken break already or studied part-time, I would also encourage you not to submit your post-graduation work permit before talking to an advisor. We might have some ideas for you for how to strengthen your application, how to request an exception. Of course, final decision is up to an officer, but it's always good to give a clarification of why something happened, what supporting documents do I have to support my application. Another thing is the time frame through which my post-graduation work permit should be submitted. If you're in Canada, you must apply within 90 days or while your study permit is still valid from the date your letter of completion becomes available to you. But overall, this is good if you plan to start working full-time as soon as you submit your post-graduation work permit. Overall, you have 180 days to apply for post-graduation work permit. Your study permit, or you should have had a valid study permit at some point during those 180 days. And again, the countdown for the 180 days or the 90 days, it starts from the day your letter of completion became available to you. You can still apply from outside Canada, so not only from within Canada. The 180 days sometimes is a good option for students who are in no rush. They will be outside Canada, so there is no concern about starting employment as soon as they submit their application. In normal circumstances, if you apply from within Canada or from outside Canada, within 90 days of program completion, while your study permit is still valid, if you meet other conditions, you can still start working full-time while your post-graduation work permit is in process. Again, I'm sorry, I'm not able to see any questions at this point, but if any of this is confusing or needs more clarification, I'll be happy to revisit this after the end of the presentation. So make sure to take notes if you have any questions about any of the topics that I'm sharing with you right now. Working after graduation on post-graduation work permit. So for those students who continuously study full-time, they applied within 90 days of from the date their letter of completion became available. They had a valid study permit at the time they applied. Post-graduation work permit is issued, or length is based on the length of your program of study. So how long is the post-graduation work permit? For programs that are 8 months or less, those programs are not eligible for post-graduation work permit. Programs that are 8 months to 2 years, the post-graduation work permit will be issued based on the duration of your program of study. For programs that are 2 years plus, should be eligible for a 3-year post-graduation work permit. Having said so, I will add 2 more things to keep in mind. Number 1, which the note I have here, if you combine 2 programs within 2 years, and of course we're talking about 2 eligible programs, students might still be eligible for a 3-year work permit. For example, if I complete 1-year diploma and then I immediately start another 1-year diploma, in total I completed 2 years of 2 different programs within 2 years, then I should be eligible for a 3-year work permit. The other note is immigration says for graduate programs that are mainly master's programs that are 16 to 23 months in duration, and this language is from the immigration website, they might be eligible or may be eligible for a 3-year post-graduation work permit. In my experience, those students who completed graduate programs that are 16 months or more, they usually get 3-year post-graduation work permit. Okay. You may start working full-time as soon as you submit your post-graduation work permit if you meet certain conditions. Of course, you applied for post-graduation work permit while your study permit is still valid. You have never worked more than 20 hours off campus. Of course, you have completed your program study and applied for post-graduation work permit. Okay. Another important note to keep in mind is that you cannot work on or off campus the moment your letter of completion becomes available to you. This is very important. Even if your study permit is still valid, even if your study permit has a condition and may work on or off campus, one of the conditions for on or and off campus work is to be a full-time student. So once your letter of completion is issued, you are no longer a student. Now we get into a transition, which is between your letter of completion becomes available and apply for post-graduation work permit. This transition period, you cannot work during this time frame, but this window might be as short as 1 hour, as a matter of fact, because what you can do, you can prepare your post-graduation work permit as soon as, let's say you have a job that you want to maintain. As soon as the letter of completion becomes available, you proceed and immediately submit your post-graduation work permit, assuming that you meet the eligibility criteria for working while waiting for your post-graduation work permit. One of the common mistakes when applying for post-graduation work permit, now especially with the new world of pandemic, COVID-19, remote and distance studies, students might not need a study permit to study from outside Canada. So they think it's okay, I don't need a study permit, and then they realize that, okay, I completed my program study, I want to apply for post-graduation work permit. They realize that they do not have a study permit within 180 days, as I mentioned earlier, from the letter of completion became available. Another mistake, it's not as severe as the one before, but if your passport will expire in 6 or 7 months, you are eligible for a 3-year post-graduation work permit, you can use that to apply for post-graduation work permit, but the work permit will be issued to the expiry date of your passport, which means as soon as you obtain a new passport and you have your post-graduation work permit, you would need to apply again, which unfortunately comes with the fact that you have to pay the application fees again. Another mistake we have is not applying for post-graduation work permit within the time frame, which is 90 days, while in Canada with valid study permit, or 180 days in total. So those students who missed 180 days, and it did happen, students changed their mind, they did not know about this window, they were hesitant, like they were not sure whether I should do it or not, then that might be a problem. Another issue that we sometimes see is students that go to their friends for help. My friend did that, it worked. If someone applies for an application and they're missing, let's say, one of the requirements, yet their application gets approved, there is no guarantee this is going to happen with others. It might be a mistake by officer. This is number one. Number two, having an advice from someone who might not know how high the stakes might be for a wrong advice might lead to serious complications. Remember, we're here to help. We're authorized by immigration to give immigration advice, and we'll be happy to talk to you if you have any questions about your postgraduate work permit, study permit, on or off campus work. We're here to help. Another common mistake is working after letter of completion becomes available. This is all, a very common mistake. Many students, they say, well, my study permit is valid for 90 days after program completion. Yes, that is correct. You have status in Canada for 90 days, but it does not come with the same benefits, for example, as being a full-time degree-seeking student. If we go back to eligibility, the eligibility criteria for working on or off campus, having a valid study permit, having a SIN number are two of the conditions, but you're also required to be a full-time student. And that's why once your letter of completion becomes available, you're not authorized to work until you submit your postgraduate work permit. Again, if you meet the eligibility criteria for that. I would encourage you to have a look at our international student guide. We have invested a lot of time and efforts. We tried, and we are still trying our best to make this guide as much as user-friendly as we can. We have detailed orientations, workshops, guidelines for many immigration applications. Post-graduation work permit is one of them. We have a step-by-step tutorial on how to apply for post-graduation work permit, including screenshots from your GCK account or the application forms, how to write a letter of explanation, what things you need to keep in mind before applying for post-graduation work permit. So make sure before you apply, talk to our advisor, make sure to visit our international student guide. Traveling after completing studies, this is a tricky topic at this point because, as you may know, we have travel restrictions currently imposed by the Canadian government. Now, in normal circumstances, let's forget about the travel restrictions for a moment. If you apply for post-graduation work permit from within Canada and your TRV expires or expired, a TRV will not automatically be issued as part of your post-graduation work permit. What happens, you apply for post-graduation work permit, TRV application should be submitted once your work permit is issued. If you apply from outside Canada, this is a different story. A TRV will be issued as part of the work permit application process, but the work permit itself will not be issued until you travel to Canada. So similar to how your initial study permit was processed. So when you applied, you got an approval letter, you travel to Canada with a TRV if you come, or ATA, and the actual study permit was issued at the border. For those who get or have post-graduation work permit and they spend extended period of time outside Canada, we usually suggest that they try to make some efforts to find employment in Canada or arrange for a job interview before traveling to Canada. This is also something to keep in mind. Now, in terms of the current travel restrictions, the first reminder I have is for those students who plan to travel, leave Canada and come back while they are enrolled as UBC students, I would encourage you to look at the International Student Guide. We have detailed instructions under Travel to Canada webpage. In addition to the eligibility criteria for those who might be exempt from the travel restrictions, we have detailed instructions about what other supporting documents you might have or you might need before traveling to Canada, self-isolation. Now we have the requirement for mandatory hotel stay and all of that. Now back to the post-graduation work permit. I will briefly say that work permit holders at this time are exempt from the travel restrictions in two occasions. Number one, if someone has a valid work permit, and of course ETA or TRV, and they normally live in Canada, they should be exempt from the travel restrictions. But for those who will apply for post-graduation work permit soon, they have to think, when will I get my work permit and my TRV? Number two, for those who apply for post-graduation work permit from outside Canada, and again, based on the current travel restrictions, they might be exempt from the travel restrictions once their application is approved. And again, I'm talking about applications from outside Canada and they have a job offer. So in short, valid work permit, normally live in Canada, valid TRV or TA, exempt. Applied for work permit from outside Canada, application approved, I have a job offer, then I might be exempt. Other key documents, if you're here in Canada with your family members, if your spouse has an open work permit as a spouse of an international student, the story might be a bit different when you apply for post-graduation work permit. What does that mean? It means spouses of international students are eligible for an open work permit as long as the student is enrolled in a designated learning institution and they will be studying full-time. That's not the case for spouses of work permit holders. There is a set of conditions that the spouse of a work permit holder has to meet before being eligible for an open work permit. Another important factor is your family members' documents are tied to your study permit. So technically, whatever documents they have, they will usually expire at the same time your study permit expires, which means when I apply for post-graduation work permit, I should keep in mind how I should maintain legal status for my other family members. Another factor is once the post-graduation work permit is issued, you might need to apply for a new TRV, extend your MSP, and extend your SIN number. Work permits. We have different types of work permits. As an example of, we have open work permits, employer-specific work permits. And I just want to be clear here that our office, this information is just for you to know. Our office is happy to advise on immigration documents that are related to your student status, for example, post-graduation work permit, spousal open work permit. But another type of work permit is International Experience Canada or worker holiday visa. But our office, unfortunately, won't be able to advise on that. Our office will not also be able to advise on employer-specific work permits. So this is just for you to know. We have LMIA, Labor Market Impact Assessment work permits. We have Labor Market Impact Assessment exempt work permits. For example, those who apply for jobs under an agreement like NAFTA, or it's called the US-Canada-Mexico agreement. I don't know what what the new name for that agreement is, I'm sorry, but it used to be called NAFTA. Sometimes the work permit, when it comes employer specific, it might be also location specific. So you cannot change jobs or employers without submitting a new work permit application. For now, if you need help with your post-graduation work permit or your spousal open work permit, even your spouse when you become a work permit holder, post-graduation work permit holder, I mean, we are still happy to guide you through that application process. You can also check the immigration website for more information about other types of work permits and how you can apply. Permanent residency. The purpose of this presentation is to give you an idea about what permanent residency means, what options you might have, what resources you might explore. Before starting, I should also be clear that our office does not advise on permanent residency or anything related to permanent residency. So eligibility under a certain program, work experience, whether it will be considered or not. However, this will give you an idea how you can start, what programs you might consider. This is just a way to introduce this option for you, but it does not limit your options with what I'm gonna only speak about today. Now, what is permanent residency? In Canada, we're either temporary residents or permanent residents. Of course, we have Canadian citizens. With temporary residents, visitors, work permit holders, or students, study permit holders like yourself. With PR, permanent residents, the main difference is PRs, they have more rights. They have social benefit rights, they have more legal rights, they have access to the legal system, maybe some appeal processes that temporary residents might not have. There is also a requirement to a minimum physical presence in Canada to maintain permanent residency status. So PRs are required to live in Canada 2 out of 5 years, 730 days in 5 years to maintain PR status, or to be in Canada as PRs for 3 out of 5 years to apply for Canadian citizenship. The two main options that I will be talking about as a way to obtain permanent residency is Express Entry, federal program, and BCPNP, which is a provincial program. You might also explore other provincial programs in different provinces because we live here in BC. This is something that we have always recommended to our students. Express Entry is a management tool for 3 federal programs. Those 3 federal programs, Federal Skilled Worker Program, Canadian Experience Class, and Federal Skilled Trades Class. The third Federal Skilled Trades Class, from the name you can tell, it's for trades. So I have not met any student who is eligible to apply under this program. The focus from our students is always on those the Federal Skilled Worker Program and the Canadian Experience Class. With the BC Provincial Nominee Program, they have different options: skilled worker, international graduate, international postgraduate program, And there's an option for a hybrid model where you create an express entry profile and then you apply for BCPMP, which is called express entry BCPMP option. You get more points in your express entry, you apply for permanent residence through the express entry and by being nominated by a province. How does express entry work? It works, first of all, you go with something called expression of interest. You create a profile. You share what work experience, language skills, level of education, and to be eligible to create the profile, you should be eligible under one of those programs, Canadian Experience class, Federal Skilled Worker class, or Federal Skilled Trades class. Let's say you're eligible under one of those programs, so you create the profile. Your profile will be assessed based on the qualifications that you have. The system is a point-based system, so you will be given a certain number of points. They're called CRS points, Comprehensive Ranking System points. You'll compete once you're in the pool, you'll compete with others. Immigration will issue invitation to apply to candidates or applicants with the highest score. And once the invitation is issued, applicants will be submitting an online PR application. This is for express entry. We go back to post-graduation work permit because it's a great way for you to gain Canadian work experience that might lead to obtaining Canadian permanent residency. If you plan to stay longer, we usually arrange for sessions with RCC and BCPMP. So keep an eye on our community update newsletter. You'll have the opportunity to see a representative from the BCPMP and RCC to talk more about this. We also have the PR pathway and latest presentations on the International Student Guide, so you might also access that. Tips: if you are eligible for permanent residency and you intend to apply, you don't have to wait. One of the things that you might want to consider, especially for graduate students, if you have work experience from outside Canada and you're now in Canada as a student, you may still create an express entry profile under the Federal Skilled Worker class. Even if you are in Canada as a student, if you don't have enough points, maybe once you complete your program, you can update your profile, you get more points. Once you get work experience, you can also update your profile. The one thing to keep in mind, once you create a profile, your profile expires in 12 months. So if you don't get an invitation to apply within 12 months, you would need to submit your application, to create another profile. Again, a reminder that the information that I shared with you today is valid as of today. We usually get updates and the new instructions from RCC without a prior notice. So please make sure to visit the RCC website and the International Student Guide for the most recent information regarding travel restrictions, the permit post-graduation work permit program, and other information on the RCC website, for example, different types of work permits, applying for permanent residency, and do not rely on any third-party websites. Another reminder is, by law, only certain people are authorized to practice immigration in Canada. For example, regulated Canadian immigration consultants, immigration lawyers. Um, there is another designation for students, regulated international student advisor as well. So please, if you will be seeking help with any type of immigration application, please make sure to to make sure that this person is authorized to practice immigration. Again, talking about international student guides, different workshops, and different tutorials, working, health insurance is very, very important as well, news and events. We also offer application reviews. If you will be applying for student permit extension, TRV, co-op permit, post-graduation work permit, you may sign up for this online application review webinar. An advisor will be sharing their screen. Unfortunately, it's not camera or voice interactive, but you can still type your questions in the chat box and an advisor will be happy to answer your questions. We also have the community update. This is a great opportunity to stay connected with our office and be aware of any event that might be coming up and might be of interest to you. So you can sign up for that as well. We're also here to help. If you have some questions or any questions, you can send us an email to isa@students.ubc.ca. Please make sure to include your student number in the subject line. You can also request a Zoom appointment with an advisor. If you go to the International Student Guide, there is a Zoom link to where you can talk to our amazing front desk staff, where they can help you with booking an appointment. We also offer phone appointments as well. Just heads up with the email. We have been receiving high volume of emails, so you might not be getting a response the next day. We try to respond within 3 business days. Now we're at 5 business days. If you have any urgent matter, request to have a Zoom appointment with an advisor. This way you will get a faster response. This is usually for if you are in no rush, you're just doing future planning. I think email would be perfect. Now I'm gonna stop sharing my screen to see some of the questions, and hopefully I'll be able to help. And okay, where should I start? I'll start with Angela's questions and then I'll go up. So when do you recommend to create and express entry profile? Again, I just want to be clear, we do not advise on PR, and I don't, the purpose of the presentation was to give you an idea what you can do. As I mentioned in the presentation, create a profile as soon as you're eligible to apply, if you want to obtain permanent residency as soon as possible. My ETA is expiring. Do I need to reapply if I'm in Canada and not plan to travel directly? Well, you can submit your ETA application online if you have obtained a new passport. I'm assuming you have. I see no harm with applying before traveling outside Canada. You might need, though, to provide your expected travel dates, just for you to know. For those who posted the question, feel free to copy and paste it again, and I'll try to do my best with answering all those questions. For Shilin, can you offer some clarification on being able to work when applying for postgraduation work permit? Yes, absolutely. Once you submit your postgraduation work permit, if you have a valid study permit, your current study permit allows you to work on or off campus, you completed your program study, and you have never worked more than 20 hours off campus, then you can start working full-time as soon as you submit your postgraduation work permit. If you just Google working while applying for postgraduation work permit, you'll get a link from the IRCC website with more information about this. Pros and cons of flag polling. This is not the time to do it. I would say I would advise against it in light of the travel restrictions. So I would say apply online at this time. Do we have to live in Canada for 2 years out of 5 years, or only for the 5 years from the PR approval? So to maintain PR status, within the last 5 years, on any given date, you should have lived for 2 years or more to maintain PR status. So for someone who obtains their PRs, they live for 2 years, they live for Canada for 5 years, technically they might lose their PR status. Until letter of completion becomes available, can I work 20 hours full-time off campus after graduation? So see, for Anush here, if we say after graduation and until letter of completion becomes available, those two things, they do not match. Technically, you will not be graduating or completing your program if your letter of completion is not available yet. So my answer is, until your letter of completion becomes available, you can work as a full-time student, which means off campus, up to 20 hours, or on campus. Hello, Abdullah, thank you for the session. The exact situation happened to me. After 4 years of studies, I applied for postgraduation work permit and received it according to my passport expiration date. So I only received the work permit for 2 years. So after I extend my passport, if you are eligible for a 3-year postgraduation work permit, yes, you cannot get the year that you are still entitled to. Feel free to book an appointment with our office and we'll be happy to help you. This is usually good to do, I would say 6 or 7 months before your current work permit expires. For Amir, are there different regulations for PhD graduates regarding postgraduation work permit eligibility? To answer Amir, no. For postgraduation work permit, it's mainly about the eligibility criteria and the duration of your program of study. PhD programs are all more than 2 years program for sure. You should be eligible for 3-year postgraduation work permit should you meet all the other eligibility criteria. Camilla, if you apply for postgraduation work permit, my study permit expired after application. Will I still be able to stay in the country? So the question is, as soon as you submit your postgraduation work permit, your study permit expired after submitting the application. Can I stay in Canada? The answer is yes. But keep in mind the travel restrictions. So as long as you won't be traveling outside Canada, you should be fine. So you can stay in Canada while your postgraduation work permit is still in process, even if your study permit expires. Angela, if I have a job that meets the NOC requirements during scheduled breaks, would the hours count for PR application? This is a very tough question because you have to think of under which program you will be applying for. And there is Canadian Experience class. My answer is, for Canadian Experience class, any work experience gained while being a full-time student will not be considered. It might be considered for a federal skilled worker class. And I'm gonna stop here. Unfortunately, we won't be able to elaborate more on work experience required for PR, but you can definitely look online or seek help from an immigration practitioner who advises on PR applications. Angela, I think I answered that. Now, does co-op term included in the full-time studies? Can we have the recording on slides of the meeting? So Micah can talk about this, but yes, as a co-op student, you are deemed to be studying full-time as per UBC's definition for immigration purposes. Adam, does research assistant work experience apply for express entry for the skilled worker class? It might be, yes. Yeah, and I'm gonna stop here, but yes, it technically you're claiming this work experience as if it was gained outside Canada, so it might be eligible for the skilled worker program class. Does the time period of a study count towards two? So for Arindam, my answer, I mean, like if you become a PR, you cannot, you have to count time as a PR, not as a student. And I hope this answers the question. So if you're looking into maintaining PR status, you have to stay in Canada as a permanent resident, not as a student, for 2 out of 5 years. If you have a medical condition, so I did not take any courses for an entire year, is it still to apply for post-graduation work permit? Laura, please book an appointment with an advisor. I think you would benefit from one-to-one with an advisor to discuss this. So about, back to Angela, jobs that are not part of COB, I'm gonna go back. If we have a job that meets the NOG requirement during scheduled break, would the hours count? So I think I answered the question about the work again while being a student towards PR. So my TRV expired after my studies, and I received post-graduation work permit. I wasn't planning to live in Canada, so I did not apply for a TRV. Would that cause any issues? The answer is no. TRV is required only when you travel back to Canada. So yeah, you can wait as long as you don't have any travel plans. Canada, if you apply for post-graduation work permit and it's accepted, can you start working part-time? Of course, you can work full-time or part-time as a work permit holder. When I'm studying for CPA, when my full-time starts in September, do I need still to have study permit? I think you need study permit, yes. For any program of study, if your program of study is 6 months or more in a duration, then a study permit is required before you start this program of study. When will the letter of completion becomes available on SSC? Usually a few days / weeks after your final exam, I'd say. In my experience, for those who complete their program by end of April, they would receive their letter of completion during the first 2 weeks of May. But you may contact your academic advisor for more specific answer to that. Thank you for those for leaving the session and they're saying thank you. Thank you very much. Now, if I do master in 16 months and co-op in 8 months, am I eligible for a 3-year program? The question is, the answer is, the total length of program is calculated based on the total length of your program with co-op and non-co-op courses. Based on what you're saying, you will be completing a 24-month program and should be eligible for a three-year post-graduation work permit. COVA, any requirement for types of jobs? Yes, there is a certain NOC, skilled job, NOC 0A or B. You can look into the International Student Guide for PR pathways for more information about the types of jobs that might qualify for PR. You're welcome, everyone. I still have a few minutes if you have any questions. If not, I will pass it over to Micah.
Thanks, Adela. Would you mind sharing the PowerPoint again?
Yes, of course, yeah.
Great, thank you so much for your presentation. That was so informative. And one thing I do want to just highlight to everyone, these information do change. So before you take any action, like consult with International Student Advisor again. Great. So we want to hear from you what you've learned from in this session. Oh, sorry. Okay. So feel free to click on the link or use the scanning thing. It has a name and I forgot it right now. And let us know what you've learned. All right, QR code, thank you. Oh, there's another question, Abdullah.
I have to stop sharing my screen, unfortunately. I can't see the chat while I'm sharing.
Okay, maybe you can answer it in a bit. Let's go to the other slides because there's a couple more information. So if you haven't registered yet but are interested in more of the LCIC workshops, please go ahead and register. I believe they're still open. There's lots of value in all of them as well. And have a fantastic week if you're attending many of them. It's going to be an exciting week. Great. And then I will just, I will have to leave the chat soon, but if there's any more questions for Abdullah, feel free, Abdullah, to stop sharing the screen, or maybe just go to the last slide with the last events.
That's it,
oh, that's
right?
it. Okay, perfect. Then, yeah, then just feel free to answer the last questions.
Sure. Yeah, so Angela, does the employer need to do anything like sponsoring if you work for it's for PMP, BC PMP, yes, maybe. For express entry, no. I mean, technically express entry, unless they're providing a job offer. So you're asking if the employer needs to do anything. Again, the answer is it depends. If they're supporting you with the work, with a job offer or not, you might not, or you might need that. But my short answer is if you meet the eligibility criteria under, for example, express entry, you might be fine without a job offer. And I'm gonna stop here. For Charo, I'm caught in a difficult situation. I had some travel home with just my post-graduation work permit and not TRV. I did not have time to apply, so I would say do apply for it as soon as I get. Of course, I would say apply as soon as possible. In your case, you have to make sure that Canada has been your main country of residence and explain why you want to come back. I would also advise you to book an appointment with an advisor to discuss that. Phoebe, what if you apply for post-graduation appointment with Canada, then leave and want to return? Then you have to be exempt from the travel restrictions based on the two scenarios that I shared with you. If you apply from within Canada, you have to wait for for your application to be approved, and then someone to mail the actual work permit to you. And if you're coming from visa required country, you have to apply for a TRV as well. The job offer is only required for work permit applications from outside Canada. If you are a work permit holder, you have to show that Canada is your main country of residence. Maybe, okay, you're welcome. One final question? No? I would like to thank you all for being here today. Thank you, Micah, for giving me this opportunity to be with everyone here today. That was a great session. I'm really sorry if the presentation was not interactive because I was not seeing your chat as I was presenting. But luckily we had enough time to look into your questions towards the end. Again, if you have any questions, if any of the topics that we discussed with you other than PR, as a matter of raise some of the concerns, you have more questions, feel free to book an appointment with an advisor and we will be happy to talk to you. Thank you, everyone. I wish you best of luck. Stay safe and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.